Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to 5 to Thrive Live, a podcast about thriving for those who have been affected by cancer and chronic disease. I'm Dr. Lisa Schuler, and I co-host with my good friend Carolyn Gazella. You can find all of our past show podcasts on every major podcast outlet and the schedule on our website, which is ithriveplan.com. Tonight, I am very excited and honored to be talking with Loren Israelson, truly an icon in the dietary supplement industry. Loren Israelson is the founder and president of the United Natural Products Alliance, or UNPA, and a nationally recognized leader in dietary supplement policy. He was very instrumental in the passage and implementation of the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, as we say DSHEA, in 1994. And he's spent decades working at the intersection of health freedom, responsible regulation, and industry accountability. He's advised lawmakers, regulators, industry leaders on balancing consumer access to supplements with science-based safety standards. And through UNPA, he continues to champion policies that protect innovation, ensure product quality, and preserve Americans' right to make informed health choices. So we're going to talk about this very topic. But before we do, let me thank our sponsors, because without them, this podcast would not be possible. First, DSHEA, a patented form of glutathione, clinically proven to raise blood glutathione levels. Glutathione is the master antioxidant and the body's primary defense against free radicals and helps to support respiratory health. And you can learn more at DSHEAglutathione.com. We also thank ProThrivers Wellness Supplements, including ProThrivers Wellness Brain, which is a product specifically for thrivers that contains cognizin for memory, focus, and attention, as well as some other brain-supporting nutrients and herbs. And you can learn more at pureformulas.com. And finally, Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics, a best-selling probiotic for over 30 years, contains 12 probiotic strains, which are shelf-stable without refrigeration due to a unique 3-year fermentation process. And you can learn more at drorhiraprobiotics.com. So hello, Loren. Welcome to 5 to Thrive Live.
Hello, Lisa. It's great to be here.
Well, great to have you. We have so many things to talk about. I'm going to jump right in, and I want to start with DSHEA, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, signed into law in 1994. And you say, though, that this really was an outcome of a movement, a health freedom movement that goes back much farther. So talk to us a little bit about the health freedom movement. When did this begin, and kind of how did this evolve into this legislation?
It's a long story. We go back now to the early 1800s. A very well-known historical figure in our industry named Samuel Thompson is often credited with being the beginning of the health revolutionaries. And he was very much opposed to how doctors practiced at the time. He had little booklets and little seed packets of how you grow the medicinal herbs in your garden. And he would walk around and sell these, and housewives would plant these, and they would grow their own medicinal plants, knew how to use them. Doctors didn't like that. So he was in constant battles. And that continued, that sort of confrontation, and I'll call it between the monopoly of the time, which also goes way back, and that continued through the 1800s. And toward the end of the 1800s, there was a fundamental food reform going on. People would remember Sylvester Graham and the graham cracker. Those were health foods, some of the original health foods. People would go to sanitariums to clean up their diet. We often think that people really ate healthy and naturally back in the 1800s. Afraid that's really not the case. They ate by volume, didn't know what a calorie was, didn't know what a nutrient was. And the quality of being a great host was how much could you literally put onto a table. People were really not as healthy as we would like to think they were. Hence, you had these sanitariums. People would go for a cure, for a cleanse, for a fast. We see exactly the same thing today. Then we get to the darkest moment of the Flexner Report in 1910. Your listeners should really just go check this out. This was a report that was commissioned, and it was designed to put all of the other non-medical schools out of business. So at that time, we had osteopaths, naturopaths, homeopaths, hydrotherapists, and on and on and on. And there were hundreds of medical colleges and schools. Many of them were women run. Many of them were Black students and faculty. And when all was said and done, the Flexner Report wiped out almost all of these alternative schools. And we were left with a medical school model that was based on Johns Hopkins University Medical School. And that is the model that has persisted to this day. So the clawback to try and recapture all of these lost, I would say, healthy arts has been a long one. Part of that journey has been dietary supplements, nutrients. And the next big battle came in the 1970s when the US FDA wanted to make our vitamins and minerals over-the-counter drugs and to limit the potencies, as you would see in most other countries around the world. The American public rose up and made a tremendous stink about this. Congress was shocked. They had no idea there were people out there taking vitamins. Well, there were a lot. And a senator from Wisconsin, Senator Proxmire, is the one who saved the day, and he protected vitamins as food supplements, not as OTC drugs, and FDA was not allowed to cap the potency of vitamins and minerals. And that turns out to be really important. And then we move into the 1990s. Once again, FDA is now going after everything else except vitamins because they couldn't touch those. And botanicals, probiotics, all kind, fish oil, you name it. And they were literally trying to put this industry out of business. That's when, and I'd previously worked in the United States Senate, so I was familiar with politics, and I'd worked for 10 years at Nature's Way, a well-known herb company. And so I was kind of at that point in my career, it was now or never that we're going to have to rise up again, another populist movement to stand down FDA. And this became this massive battle, and millions, literally millions of people called their members of Congress, wrote, signed petitions, marched. There was something called Blackout Day in health food stores. They would cover with black crepe paper the supplement section, usually on Tuesdays. And a customer would walk in, they would see this crepe paper and say, what's this about? You can't buy vitamins today. That's what it's about. Why not? The retailer would tell them, there's the phone. There's the number of your congressman. Call them. And so we had two bills, one in the House, one in the Senate. And after a 2-year battle, we won. And so the law you referred to, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, is the fundamental foundation on which today's dietary supplement industry exists. And it's now a $70 billion industry, well on its way to 80. And words that didn't exist in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, the names of echinacea and ashwagandha and probiotics of all kinds, kombucha, you name it, that's us. We brought those to the market. And these are what I would call the non-monopolistic side of the food supply chain. And so one lesson we learned is that this America is a place where populism still exists, and you see it most clearly in the alternative and natural health arena.
Right. Well, I don't know if you know this, but I graduated from Naturopathic Medical School in 1994. So when I was in school, all this was going on, and I very much remember the activism that was happening and how integral it was to what I was learning to become.
Yeah.
And you've minimized your own role, but I want to thank you personally for all that you've done for this industry, because it really has been so important and integral in protecting access to dietary supplements, but also protecting the quality of the dietary supplements, which is, of course, an important issue. And I've heard you say, Loren, that the kind of populism that brought this law forward and really made forced legislators to reckon with this issue wouldn't be happening today because of the landscape and the way it's changed with computers and AI and information and misinformation. So I'm just kind of wondering what you would say about the health freedom movement now as compared to then.
Well, I have said that on various occasions. In fact, we do have an example of a new populist movement that has arisen. We call it MAHA. And these are really moms trying to protect their children from pesticides, herbicides, artificial colors, dyes, flavors, etc. Very unhealthy foods, super high sugar beverages, the list goes on and on. And the MAHA movement crystallized around a figure which happened to be RFK Jr. And as I've watched with very keen interest on how MAHA formed, it happened very, very quickly. Just in a matter of a couple of months, it went from being millions of Americans who didn't know how to vent their frustrations, wanting cleaner air, water, and food. And then RFK, that was a central message, among others. And then kaboom, we saw MAHA, and it was critical from a political standpoint, critical in what we see FDA and HHS doing today. So I didn't see that coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's so fascinating to me, because I did fear that the day of health populism might be over in the US because of the transformation of information flows. People are apolitical, the younger generations in particular. And politics, I think we're all just very disappointed in how politics is run. And we feel disenfranchised largely. So irrespective of how you feel about MAHA, is that what they represent, and they don't even know this. And I've talked with some of these folks and said, do you know that you're part of a genealogy, of a history of others that have done exactly the same thing? I have yet to meet one person that knows where their belief lineage comes from. And that's one thing I'm very big on, is that the importance of understanding, if you feel this way about health freedom, is that you have a long and a very distinguished lineage. It goes back hundreds of years, and people have fought like crazy to protect the rights that we enjoy today. And so, I'm watching MAHA with great interest. And the big thing that happened was this recent executive order on glyphosate Roundup. And that is the clearest example we see today of the power of a monopoly, which is big ag, big food, big chemical. They've spent nearly $60 million lobbying this government to make sure that pesticides, generally glyphosate specifically, remain on the market. When that executive order came out, it was an earthquake that went through the MAHA community. They felt deeply betrayed. And we don't know how this ends up. But what it showed us is the power of the opposition that exists now as it did before. And I tend to think in very simple terms. We represent the pluralistic view that there should be many ways to do agriculture: sustainable, organic, regenerative. What we have now is a monoculture system. So the word mono means a lot to me. If you see that word associated with any industry, I'm immediately deeply concerned and usually very suspicious. I look for plurality of thought, of ways of doing things, of expressions of opinions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I think that this is an interesting point you're bringing up, because this administrative order, which basically protects the production and use of glyphosate.
Correct.
And, that's a big, as you said, a big concern for people concerned with health. And so how would you say then that this populist movement is to contend with these very well-funded interest groups that are obviously persuasive because of I think, frankly, the money that they can throw
Right.
towards the politicians. So what are we to do? I mean, I'm in the naturopathic medicine profession. All of my patients are aware to some level of the environmental concerns around, as you said, in our air, our water, our food. People are interested in dietary supplements. They're invested in taking high quality dietary supplements. So, I mean, what are we to do?
Well, first, it's critical to look at this with the long view because there will be wins and losses. This was a loss with this executive order. But I don't think we should judge it in any one event happening. It is incredibly hard to beat the system, and it doesn't happen very often. The way I think about what do we do now with an executive order that protects glyphosate is once again the populist movement is what will change that. Is if public sentiment is strongly opposes this, politicians almost without exception follow when they begin to sense that there is a powerful trend that may knock them out of office. Nothing scares politicians more than educated constituents. And if people organize themselves and say, okay, all right, we can see what happened, and you could have an active Congress to reverse that. You can have other ways of approaching it. Elections are another way that really makes a big difference. But also changing what you buy. Is that if people are that deeply opposed to glyphosate, don't buy it. You go organic and you find other ways, grow a garden, do it yourself as much as you can. Hard to do everything, but there are, I would say, using the Gandhi approach, there are more the peaceful ways of protest. And then we have those periods where it's really a cage fight. And we've had our share of those. So let's play the long game here is we take action individually. And if enough people do that, my instinct tells me that there will be a change in policy as it regards that executive order. Those are fairly easy. Well, I won't get into that, but there are opportunities for consumers now to galvanize around an issue like that. And I certainly need for that to happen here.
Yeah, so I do want to ask you a little bit more about that. But first, I just want to go back for a moment to supplements specifically, because there is this intersection, and I think really sometimes a tension between consumers wanting access to things, especially now that they've read about on, social media probably is the biggest source. Scientific evidence, which is spotty, let's be fair. And then there's the regulatory oversight regarding how supplements are manufactured and put into market and how they're labeled. And all these three things come together in creating a market, creating availability. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that and how that's going to continue to shape the dietary supplement industry moving forward.
Well, I've spent my entire career dealing with that very problem. It's a milking stool. It's got three legs. You need three. There is a need for a regulatory function by government to oversee that which we cannot do ourselves. It would be great if we could go and see every manufacturing facility and how well they're making products. That's FDA's job. There are third-party certifiers that will also do that job. So we need those that are experts to go in and really make sure things are up to speed. We want safe, and we need safe products. When regulations get out of hand and there's an imbalance, that's when we end up having to make a correction. These days, we have a lot of resources in the form of very good trade associations, very good technical organizations, professional societies and a different relationship with FDA than we used to. We can go sit down, talk to them, and have a legitimate discussion, and they have shown flexibility. I think more is coming. And the science. This is probably the one that is the trickiest. It's my belief that the supplement user, the natural health consumer, is by nature a believer, and that they are less persuaded by the science than they are by their trust in other forms of information. That is their own personal experience, number one, the experience of others around them, the collective wisdom of traditional knowledge, but we're seeing that we need a blend of both. This was a fundamental battle in DSHEA, was how much evidence is needed in order to say something, as a claim, to make a statement, this will help promote sleep, picking just something. Consumers have the right to the assurance that that product will deliver as promised. Tricky balance. So I think that the science that we struggle with is because the system was built for a pharmaceutical model, which is you want to get to a very specific disease endpoint and study that. And our system doesn't yet understand other ways of looking at something and establishing that it works. They want to see the drug studies, double-blind, crossover, placebo-controlled studies. Those are appropriate in a number of cases, but we're still fighting that battle of how much and what kind of evidence do we need to support the things that we say. And fundamentally, we have to tell the truth, number one. And we live in a world right now where truth is a scarce thing. And I think it gets worse before it gets better. And it's one of the biggest challenges we have is how do you figure out what's true, what's a rumor, what's complete nonsense? And we have a million voices trying to talk to us. And they want our eyeballs, and they want our brains, and they want our pocketbooks.
So
the battle out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, so you know this industry probably better than anyone. So how do you guide people to discover the truth when it comes to, I think supplements for sure, and even other modalities within this sort of off the mainstream?
Boy, the ideal is that, and I know this is hard for everybody, but being an informed health consumer, that requires time, effort. You got to be willing to put the work in. But if you do a lot of work and you're looking at the wrong stuff, you didn't do yourself any favors. There are organizations that I trust. I read their materials. I follow their updates. And I was thinking before coming on to the show is that might be something that I could put together and share with you, and you in turn with your audience, is some of the organizations and information sources that at least I consider to be credible, reliable, trustworthy. If you have a practitioner in your community, or more than one, a naturopath, I think old school osteopaths are great. If you can find a homeopath, good for you. But there are people, who are really, I think, underappreciated are TCM practitioners. There are a lot of incredibly well-trained TCM doctors that were trained in Asia, but now practice here. And some of the best experiences I've had have been with TCM practitioners. Ayurveda, likewise. But it is really hard to feel like you've got a solid idea. And trust me, when I walk into a store and I'm looking at the shelf, there are so many brands that I've never seen and heard before.
Yeah.
And I'm in the same position as everybody else, trying to make sense of all these new products. I have my favorites that I've known and used for many years. I've been in their factories. I've seen how they meet things. The thing that I look at the most is, where do they buy their ingredients? And that tells me more than anything else.
Interesting. So give us a couple of concrete actions for a listener who cares about Health Freedom wants to be proactive in this way, what can they do to protect their right to make informed health choices?
Grow a garden. Number one is
Mm.
get your hands in the soil, stay connected to it. Shop at a local mom and pop store. Please do that. I understand the convenience of online, but I also know that if we don't support our local retailers and restaurants and other the community people that we live with, we'll be very sad because they're going to have a hard time making it. So shop locally. We all, I think, give to charity. I would hope listeners would really consider making donations to organizations within the natural health community that are fighting for your rights. And I'd be happy to give you a list of those as well and share that. And say when you're thinking of where you'd like to put your donation money is consider some of these organizations. They work so hard and they're underfunded. With more resource, boy, could they do more that would benefit all of us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, those are very good actions. So I'm going to ask you to be a futurist for a moment. So look ahead 5-10 years, and what would success look like to you for the health freedom movement? And, really, this is a chance for you to tell us what keeps you optimistic about how getting us to that point.
Number one, I have tremendous faith that this long lineage of generations of people who have risen to the cause it's deep in our genes, and that there will be the next generation and the one behind that will rise up and prove themselves to be champions and leaders. That's part of what my work is these days. Is I spend time working with and mentoring younger members of our industry, those that really would like to be more involved in the political environment. That's not for everybody, but there are some people that are really gifted and good at that. We need that. I also believe that we will need to get to a couple of crisis points, and then there will be, I would say, spontaneous combustion of energy coming from our industry. It's that point where our diet has become so horrific, loaded with sugar, all sorts of things that are very unhealthy for us, that we see our children becoming sicker in all ways, physically, mentally, emotionally. They're obese. How do you field a national military when everybody fails the physical exams? When the air and the water is too dirty? There's a breaking point. And I think that's where the revolution comes. And it will be, I think it's going to focus on more the environment. The food that we eat is a gift of nature. How the food is made is the problem. So I believe that we need to change the means of production, and as soon as we have the will and the strength to do that, that's when everything will begin to change.
Yep.
So I think we've won the dietary supplement battles that will last us for the next 5 and 10 years, and I think the battle shifts now to environmental issues, clean air, clean water, clean food. We're seeing what it's doing to our younger generations and our kids, and not acceptable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So in a minute, give us your final thought or thoughts.
Well, I'm going to quote Senator Tom Harkin, who was one of our great champions that helped pass the DSHEA, a wonderful man. And he years ago said, I was in a meeting with, 10, 15 other people. And it was a particularly brutal week on Capitol Hill. And there was just a pause in the room, and he just looked at everybody. He said, folks, he said, freedom isn't free, and health freedom is particularly expensive. Get back out there and keep fighting. And it's always stuck with me is health freedom comes with a price, and the price is our individual engagement to protect what we want.
Yeah.
So my parting thought really is that health freedom isn't free. Prepare to pay your share.
All right. I like it. This is, inspired action. Well, this has been such a great show. I could talk to you for a long time, and I just want to thank you for taking time to join me tonight. Is there a website you'd like to share with our listeners or social media?
I don't do social media because I don't want to and I don't know how.
Okay.
So people can go, you can look me up on Google. There's quite a lot of stuff there.
Yes, there is.
And you're welcome to go to our UNPA website. There's a lot of information and things you might find interesting. That's at unpa.com. And so that's how you find me. And otherwise, don't look for me on social media.
Okay. Well, I shall not. Well, thank you so much. That wraps up this episode of 5 to Thrive Live. Again, I want to thank our sponsors for this show, ProThrivers Wellness Brain Formula, Cetria Glutathione, the superior glutathione for liver and immune health, and Dr. Ohhira's award-winning shelf-stable probiotic. And remember, you can find all of our past shows at ithriveplan.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And thank you, listener, for joining us. May you experience joy, laughter, and love. It's time to thrive, everyone. Have a great night.